What's up, guys? So, sorry for the beginning of how this video is like starting, but essentially, is that I was gonna make a Todoroki and a Shinzo one, and I was searching for a Todoroki one, and I came across another Bakugou one by accident. I saw it, and I thought it was Todoroki at first, till I came to where you read it all, and it's actually a Bakugou one. So yeah, this is called Honey Honey. It's where Bakugo is a pro hero already, and so here's the description. Ground Zero, Deku, and Shoto are scheduled to have a meet and greet at a primary school to boost their rankings. There, Bakugo unexpectedly meets a kindergarten teacher with a sweet smile who likes to call people honey. Essentially, this is a long one, so and this is all fluff. So I don't get it. Why we have to do some stupid meet and greet? Grumbled Bakugo under his breath. Isn't this some shit we were forced to do as interns? Todoroki shrugged. It wasn't bad. You're only upset because the last time we went, the children liked Midoriya more than you. Well, those kids must have been idiots for thinking loser Dick had any chance of. I'm right here, you know. Yeah, I know. That's the fucking point. With a sigh, Todoroki reluctantly opened the door of their tinted black car as it came to a full stop. They had just reached the front of the Tokadana primary school with a stout, balding man emerged from the entryway with a blinding grin. Heroes! He greeted with an outstretched hand that Midoriya was the first to accept. Thank you so much for coming. I'm the principal of this school, Kuryasawa. Thank you for having us, sir, replied Deku brightly. It's such a great opportunity for us to talk and encourage the next generation of young heroes. Upon hearing those words, Kurosawa's expression grew even brighter than before. In effect, the annoying Deku seemed to have people. Bako hated it to admit it, but he knew it was one of the reasons Midoriya's hero ranking was currently above his own. If Katsuki wanted to move up, he would need to improve on his perseverance, social calibration, and generally likability. Perhaps his primary school meet and greet would be just the thing to do for him. But when the principal glanced from Deku's reassuring, smiling face to Shoto's static one, and its own primary irritated looking one, Kurago's grin fettered. An effect Bakugo seemed to have on people. Clearing his throat, Kurosawa clapped his hands together and lead the trio inside the campus grounds. Okay, if you three would follow me, I have the first class to lead you to. Bakugo walked behind him, glancing around the harshly lit hallways that seemed a lot smaller and more cramped than he remembered as a child. You start off with the older students, and then work your way down to the kindergartens. The principal explained. These kids currently have nap time around this hour, but by the time you're done meeting the other classes, Miss Listener and her students should be ready for you. And with that, Bakudo endured those hours of engaging with snotty-nosed little kids. They talked about what it meant to be a hero, or At least the excited, fun-fit parts the children were actually interested in, and some of their favorite rescue moments. He could admit it wasn't the worst experience he had. But then again, Katsuki once got attacked by a measly sledge villain and was completely helpless against it. So that wasn't saying much. But still, by the time they were meant to speak to the youngest class full of kindergartens, it was safe to say he was utterly exhausted. Is it almost time to sleep yet? Tori asked wearily, rubbing gently at his eyes. In the middle of the fluffing day, Bakugou quickly amended, reminding himself of the horror that filled him when he let a swear word slip out of his mouth and had a class of 9-year-old students repeating after him. It was as if their damn brats were trying to get him in trouble. Why would it be time to sleep already? But Katsuki couldn't help but feel his own energy slipping at the thought of speaking to another group of rowdy kids. He was able to do 48 long stakeouts with minimum discomfort, yet he was almost at his knees after being stuck with small children for a few hours. He had no idea how teachers were able to do this daily. Taking in their tired expressions, Midoriya piped in. There's only one class left, guys. And they're the youngest ones. Who needs the most entertaining? Let's try to keep our spirits high for them, yeah? You're right, Midoriya. Whatever. With a small huff, Bakugo knocked on the door of the final room. The principal instructed them to enter and waited for a reply. There was a ringing. One moment, please, before he heard shuffling from inside. Right as the door opened, Kasi was hit with a whiff of vanilla and craft glue, a mixture he found surprisingly pleasant. He heard a slight gasp as the entrance opened fully, and Buckley's gaze followed the sound until it landed on two wide eyes staring at him. Confused, he stared back. Hi there, Midoriya said in tone after a few moments worth of awkward silence. The only noise heard was the sound of kids playing. Oh, hi, I'm the kindergarten teacher. Listener, he blinked, startled, before straightening your back as you tried to get rid of the dazed expression on your face. I'm sorry. I told you three was coming to speak with the children, but wow, I still can't believe this is actually happening. You beamed up at the trio as you motioned them for them to follow you inside the classroom. I'm a huge fan, you admitted with a sheepish grin on your face as you absently smoothed down the fronts of your slacks. When Bakugo gave you a once-over, it's especially of Ground Zero, so please forgive me for being a little starstruck. Todoroki hid a small smile forming on his face, and Midori didn't even bother disguising the obvious nudge he gave Bakugo on the side. The moment they looked the other way, don't don't worry about it, ma'am. I'm sure he doesn't mind at all. Katsuki made a disgruntled noise of protest, but didn't say a word. Walking toward the center of the room, where the kids were playing with some toys and puzzles, you somehow managed to capture the students' attention with a swift rise of the hand. Attention, class, you announced in a powerful yet soothing voice. Remember the pro heroes we were talking about earlier? Excited chattering filled the room as the students caught sight of Ground Zero, Deku and Shoto standing side by side in front of them. They they came to speak with us to us today and tell us stories and have fun adventures. Sound exciting? Yeah! With the overwhelming consent. As you were about to let the trio introduce herself, a little girl in pigtails waved her hand around eagerly. You raised a brow. You have a question, Rena? She nodded. For the heroes. We should hold off the questions until they actually get to the chance to speak to you all first, you said with a hint of amusement. Rena put her hand back down with a small pout, but not obediently, nevertheless. Baku gave you a questioning look. Do you have like a precision quirk? He should know about whenever he told a kid to do something, the little brats would always seem to do the either a saint or you had to help with from the quirk. Now, now I'm sure you already knows who these three are. You paused and waited for the animated murmurs to die down once more, but I'll let them introduce themselves anyway. Turning towards Midoriya, you gave him a nod and signaled for them to begin speaking. Deku started first and managed to get the student's energy level so high, Bakugou was certain the room directly above them was able to hear the kids through the layers of wood and plaster. Each of them took a turn to briefly tell your class about themselves, along with inspiring shit their peer agents told them to include. Throughout it all, Kusky felt your awestruck gaze, along with the kids. Never leaving his, he couldn't help but buff his chest and buff his chest out when you cheered him on after he spoke, discarding the fact that you cheered for loser Deku and the half and half bastard Shoto as well. Great job listening, class, he piped in proud smile as you watched the students sit continually at their seats. Now that our heroes are done with their introductions, does anyone have any questions for them? All the kids raised their hands at once, and you laughed before going on a boy with All Might shirt on. Bakugou was expecting a question about the relationship with the real, real symbol of peace, or at least something along those lines. But the kid simply asked, "How do you go? How do you go to the toilet in your costumes?" Katsuki winked and Izuku chuckled as he scratched the back of his head, wondering how to answer. Um, well, you see, Deku was cut off by a firm cough from you. Sorry about that. You don't need to answer that, sir. You looked back at the students who still had their hands up. Let me ask the question in a different way. Does anyone have any school appropriate that your parents would approve to ask the heroes? All these children would reluctantly put their hands down, except for one. Yes, Runa? The young girl's face brightened happily. Can I ask my question now? You nodded with a small grin. Okay, my question is, can they have free play with us? Pretty please? At the suggestion, the other kids pleaded along, caring more about the prospects of additional playmates than the fact that they were famous sub heroes. Boko let out a snort of laughter. Kids really was something else. I'm sorry, honey. You said apologetically, giving the trio a brief glance. I'm sure they would love to, but they're tight children. They have to leave him. No, we don't. Bakugo blurted out before his mind could register what he said. You blinked. You, I pardon? He stared from beside him. Midoriya stiffened with a chuckle, while Todoroki looked like he was ready to collapse on kindergarten kindergartner's format and take a long nap. I'm sure I'm just saying that this is the last class we have to speak to, and we don't really have anywhere to be after this. Bakugou didn't know why people he was still talking. He really don't. He wished he could say he was looking at this as an opportunity for him to boost his likability and popularity scores to rank higher in the charts. But both of his two main competitors were here. So that was a bullshit excuse, and he knew it. Instead, Cassie had a sinking suspicion you and your craft brewing vanilla scent has something to do with the ridiculous blobbering. You kept gaping at him with a dazed expression instead of replying. He let out a huff. Listen, do you kids want us to stay over for a little longer or not? He muttered, trying not to sound too gruff. Yeah! They cheered, staring in their seats as they waited for their playmate. But you were so reluctant, Grand Hero Sir. You guys really don't have to. He wants to, Todoroki interrupted, muttered affectedly. What the fuck? Wasn't that bastard half asleep and barely responsive just a minute ago? And Shoto and I don't mind either, said Midoriya before Bakugou could squeeze out a curse word on the top of his tongue. Well, if you're sure, you turned to your class with a slight bewildered yet nonetheless joyful grin. Class, these heroes are offering up their own time to join y'all for the indoor free playtime before dismissal. Make sure you give them a big thank you and show your appreciation. And that was how, after a long chain of events, Todoroki ended up lying on the floor as a group of kids placed glittery clips in his hair and sparkly stickers on his face. Midoriya ended up putting together train checks with the kids in the All Might shirt, and Bakugo ended up competing, competing against a 5-year-old to see who could build the biggest Lego house the fastest. All the while, Katsuki saw suspicious glances at you, giggled in amazement at the sight of three grown men completely out of their elements, trying to attend a class of kindergartners. Why are you staring at my teacher? The little girl next to him asked obliviously, amongst making Bakugo's eyes pop out of his sockets at the thought of you overhearing. Hey, keep it down, kid, he huffed. I'm not staring at anyone. She stuck her tongue out. It's Rena, not kid, you boomer. What the? And if you're not staring, what's this then? She asked, opening her eyes wide and peering unnervously into what seemed like Katsuki's soul. Rena kept her eyes open for well over a minute before blinking. That was that's what you look like, staring at teacher listener. Bucko's left eye twitched as he tried to contain his annoyance. Why don't you say that louder, kid? Okay. Why are you staring at I was kidding, he hissed, mortified, but Rena wouldn't shut up. I'll forfeit up to the contest and then make you build the Lego house in the world if you lower your voice. She said, okay. Bakugo rubbed his temples at the change in behavior. Thankfully, she was no longer blabbering on about supposedly staring at you. But by then, the damage had already been done. Rena's brief shouting was enough to draw your undivided attention. You approached the two of, of them with far eyebrows. Is everything okay, honey? Yeah, everything's. She was talking to me, Rena interrupted with folded arms. Bucko's face flamed as you covered the smile forming on your face with your hand. I guess I was talking to both of you said and halted behind your words, honeys. I think you're even more embarrassed at your teasing and could only be thankful that Midoriya and Todoroki weren't in a close enough distance to overhear. But in all seriousness, is something the matter, Rena? He smiled, straining into a athletic look that Bakugou thought strangely suited you. You know we don't use outdoor voices inside. She peered up at you innocently. But, but teacher, Ground Zero was the one who told me to say it something loudly. Your mouth parted slightly in confusion before you turned to him with a slightly reprimanding expression. Is that true, Ground Zero? Bakugo glanced back and forth between Rena and Sirius again, and your unwilling gaze. Well, yes, but he felt he the need to explain. I was only being sarcastic. Februaries typically don't tend to understand sarcasm as much as adults do. Sir, you asked sternly, but the slight tilt of the corner of your lips let him know that you weren't actually upset of him. Not that Buckle would have cared either way, of course. Okay, I'll let you two off with a warning. You pretend to give him, but indoor voices only, Rena, and you'll have to stay after school to help me with cleanup. Rena shook her head vehemently at the thought of school cleanup. Oh, no more outdoor voice for me, teacher. Thank you, honey. As you were about to walk away, she called out, But wait! You looked back at Rena with a questioning glance as you waited for her to continue. You know, Ground Zero was the one who told me to use my outdoor voice, so he should be the one getting in trouble. Bakugo gaped with this little rat really telling on him. A grown ass adult? If he doesn't get punished, what will that tell the young students about following rules? She smugly. You saw really. Oh, of course. You understand the concept of general deterrence. Yet you didn't understand Ground Zero's sarcasm. Nope. Cassie let out an intense short of laughter as he joined in. Your laugh was clear and full. One of them had the ability to capture the, the attention of all the others in the room. Even Shoto, who Buckley couldn't sworn was just sleeping, glanced your way with a small smile. I suppose Rena's right, Ground Zero, he said solemnly, giving him a executive wink when the child wasn't looking. It wouldn't be a good example if I let you off the hook just because you were a pro hero, right? He rolled his eyes, but found himself agreeing with whatever you said. That would be a bad example to set, I guess. Then I suppose you'll have to stay with after dismissal and help me clean up. Isn't that right, Rena? She nodded rapidly. Bakugo's eyes couldn't hardly keep up. It startled him. You pursued your lips in a direction, tied your amusement. You have after school cleanup with me as your punishment. Rena stuck out her tongue out in victory before jumping out of her seat. to play with some of her friends. When she left, Bakugou remarked, "That doesn't sound much of a punishment to me." You let out a laugh surprised at his words. "I wouldn't say that if I were you." A group of 5-year-olds in the room for 7 hours could lead to one pretty mucky class. The part didn't sound very pleasant, but how to get to see your smiling face and hear you twinkling laughter throughout it all. "I've been through worse," said Bakugou with a shrug, trying to appear nonchalant when on the inside he was wondering what the fuck had he gotten himself into. He wasn't sure why he found you so interesting, but strangely enough, he didn't mind. "Well, if that's the case," you teased a longer grin lighting up your face, "I could always use extra hands around here. I mean, maybe afterwards I could treat you out for some food and say thank you." He blinked. "Were you? I mean, that's only if you want to, though." You cut in nervously when he didn't reply in timely manner. "I didn't mean to overstep." "You didn't," Koski replied as he scratched the back of his neck. "Food sounds good." You glanced up at him, surprised, a hopefully look in your eyes. "Really?" You glanced up at him, surprised. "Really? Perhaps helping you clean up after a bunch of snot-nosed kids wouldn't be so bad after all." So that is the end of his story. Um, I'm gonna make sure. I'm gonna see if there's a part two to this. And this is only a 27-minute long video, and I thought this should be longer. But I'll go back on the search for Todoroki Easter's the one. And so yeah, bye guys.